In the winter of 1987, a researcher in Alaska found a common red pole sparrow frozen solid, not cold, not hypothermic, frozen. Its body temperature had dropped to -8 degrees Celsius. Its heart had almost completely stopped. It wasn't moving. It wasn't breathing normally. By every medical definition that existed at the time, this bird was dead. The researcher picked it up, carried it inside, set it on a table, and went to get his notebook to record the death. When he came back, the sparrow was standing up. It shook its feathers once, looked around the room, and flew straight into the window, trying to get back outside. Alive. Perfectly alive. After being clinically frozen for over 6 hours, scientists who heard this story didn't believe it. They demanded proof. They got it, because it wasn't a single case. It wasn't an accident. It was a survival strategy so extraordinary, so biologically impossible by everything we thought we understood, that it forced scientists to rewrite fundamental assumptions about the limits of life itself. Today, we are going inside the story of the smallest bird with the most extraordinary survival secret on Earth. Not a predator, not a giant, not a creature built for extremes. A sparrow that discovered something about survival that humans are only now beginning to understand and use. By the end of this video, you may never look at a small thing the same way again. Let us start with the biology, because to understand what the red pole sparrow does, you first need to understand why it should be impossible. When temperatures drop below freezing, water inside living cells begins to crystallize. Ice crystals form, and ice crystals inside cells are lethal. They puncture cell membranes. They destroy the structures inside cells. They cause a kind of damage so catastrophic that it cannot be repaired. This is why frostbite is so dangerous in humans. Not because the cold itself kills, but because the ice forming inside our cells kills. And this is why, when scientists first heard reports of birds surviving at temperatures below freezing, they were deeply skeptical because everything they knew about biology said it was impossible. Ice inside living cells equals death, not temporary shutdown, not recoverable damage, death. And yet the red pole sparrow does it, repeatedly, voluntarily, every single winter night. The question that drove researchers to spend decades studying this tiny bird was not simply how it survives. It was how anything biological could survive something that all existing science said was incompatible with life. The answer, they found, didn't just explain the sparrow. It opened a door into one of the most extraordinary fields in modern biology. But before we get to the frozen cells, we need to talk about what the red pole sparrow does before the temperature gets that low. Because the frozen state is the last resort, not the first response. A common red pole sparrow weighs approximately 12 grams, less than a single AA battery, and yet it regularly survives temperatures that kill animals 20 times its size. The first reason is insulation. Red poles grow specialized winter plumage that is proportionally thicker relative to body size than almost any other bird species studied. Not just more feathers, different feathers. Feathers with a unique interlocking structure that creates thousands of tiny air pockets between the bird's skin and the outside world. Each air pocket traps heat. Each layer of interlocked feathers adds another barrier. The result is an insulation system so efficient that a red pole sitting still in -30-degree air maintains a core body temperature of around 40 degrees Celsius, a difference of 70 degrees, across just a few centimeters of feathers. No material humans have ever manufactured achieves that ratio of insulation efficiency to thickness. But insulation is only the beginning. Because when temperatures drop further still, the red pole does something else. Something that should not be physiologically possible. Here is what happens when a red pole sparrow faces truly extreme cold. Temperatures below what even its extraordinary feathers can handle. Temperatures that would kill almost any other creature on Earth. It begins to lower its own body temperature, deliberately, voluntarily, precisely. This process is called regulated hypothermia. And in the red pole, it goes further than in almost any other bird species documented. The sparrow's body temperature drops not because it is losing the battle against the cold, but because it is choosing to lose heat strategically. A lower body temperature means less energy is needed to maintain warmth. A small drop in core temperature can reduce the energy demand on the bird by as much as 30%. In a blizzard where food is impossible to find, that 30% difference can mean the difference between surviving until morning and not surviving. But the red pole doesn't just drop its temperature slightly. In documented cases, it drops its temperature to the point where ice begins to form in certain tissues, not inside cells. This is the critical detail that took scientists decades to understand. The ice forms between cells, in the fluid that surrounds them, not inside them. And this distinction between ice inside cells and ice between cells is the difference between death and one of the most remarkable survival strategies ever recorded in biology. When scientists finally understood exactly what the red pole was doing, they realized they were not just looking at a bird survival story. They were looking at a solution to one of the greatest unsolved problems in modern medicine: organ transplantation. When a human organ is removed for transplant, it begins to die immediately. Doctors have a narrow window, hours, sometimes less, to get the organ to a recipient and restore blood flow, because cells begin to die the moment circulation stops. And the primary cause of cell death in transplanted organs is exactly the same problem the red pole faces every winter night: ice crystal formation, freezing damage to cells during the preservation process. Doctors had been searching for decades for a way to slow cellular death in transplant organs, to buy more time, to extend that window from hours to days, to make transplantation possible for patients who couldn't reach a hospital quickly enough. And the answer was sitting in an Alaskan snowfield, 12 grams, fluffed against the wind, surviving the night. Researchers studying the red pole's ability to protect cells from ice damage identified specific proteins in the bird's tissues, proteins that act as a kind of biological antifreeze, not preventing ice formation entirely, but controlling where the ice forms, directing it away from cells into the spaces between them, where it causes no permanent damage. These proteins are now being studied as the basis for new organ preservation solutions. Solutions that could extend transplant windows from hours to days. Solutions that could save thousands of lives every year, all because someone asked why a sparrow could survive being frozen. If this story is blowing your mind right now, hit like so more people can discover what this tiny bird is teaching medicine. But there is one more part of this story, one more layer of the red pole's survival that goes beyond biology, beyond medicine, into something that feels almost philosophical. Every winter night, when temperatures drop to their most extreme, red poles don't face the cold alone. They gather, hundreds of them, sometimes thousands, in the densest available shelter, packed together so tightly that the collective body heat of the flock raises the temperature inside their roost by several degrees. Each bird contributing warmth, each bird receiving warmth. The strongest individuals pressing toward the outside edges of the huddle, protecting those at the center, then rotating inward to warm themselves, then back to the edge. A living, rotating system of shared survival. No individual bird survives as well alone as it does within the flock. And here's the detail that researchers found most striking. Red poles that are separated from their flock during a severe cold night have measurably lower survival rates. Not because they lose the warmth of the group, but because they appear to become less effective at regulating their own temperature, as if the biology of survival itself works better in company, as if some part of what keeps a red pole alive through a frozen night is simply not being alone. 12 grams, the weight of a single AA battery, surviving minus 40-degree blizzards, surviving temperatures that freeze its own tissues, surviving nights that would kill animals 100 times its size, not by being the biggest, not by being the strongest, not by running away from the cold, but by understanding something about survival That took human scientists decades to learn. That the goal is not to resist what is trying to destroy you, the goal is to change how it affects you. The red pole doesn't fight the freeze. It controls it. It directs it. It uses it. And it does not do this alone. It huddles. It shares. It rotates. It survives as part of something larger than itself. Perhaps that is why this 12-gram bird, in the darkest and coldest place on Earth, is still here. Every winter, every night, doing the impossible, quietly. If this story changed something in you, subscribe to Birdhearts so you never miss another incredible bird survival story. And tell me in the comments, did you know a sparrow could survive being frozen? Or did this completely change everything you thought you knew about survival? I'll see you in the next one.